Hey everybody, welcome back to the wood shop for another video in our table restoration series where we try to restore this old antique dining table.
That's right. The next step in our project is to do some color matching now. We've already tested this. We've got a video out there about how we blended our own custom stain to match this red oak to the antique table. So we're going to continue with that today and go ahead and make this match this. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is mix up our stain. Based on our testing, we think 4 parts of true black to 6 parts of special walnut is just about the right mixture. So we'll go ahead and pull out each. Got this nice little syringe to help me draw the stain up. That right there is 12 milliliters of special walnut. And then we'll do 8 milliliters of true black. And then we'll give that a good stir, get it all blended. So as you can see here, we've tried to color match these new pieces of wood, and it's somewhat darker. So we've started sanding this off. I'm going to show you this foot right here. We started sanding this down a little bit. We're going to give it another go to try to color match. Just kind of sand this lightly. Try to lighten it back up. And you can see that raw wood is coming through. The darker stain's in the grain. That's not going to come out. So we're going to try to go back over this with this driftwood color because we want to darken it up a little bit, but not too much. So we'll kind of scuff this down a little bit, put this driftwood on, and see what happens. All right, so we have determined that the stain we're going to use for this table is this penetrating stain in driftwood. It's kind of like muddy water. It's very thin. It doesn't have a lot of color to it. It kind of gives a brownish gray color. We're going to try to mute some of the oranges and the reds and try to make this wood that we've attempted to color stain kind of like make it all blend together. So we're going to try it and see what happens. And you can see in the areas where we've kind of gotten down to that original raw wood, it does blend a little bit. We may have to go back in with a pen because parts of this wood is dark. We just couldn't get all of the original stain off no matter what we did. So we may have to go in with like a color pen and touch that up a little bit to make it blend, but I really like this. I think it's going to look good. Let's go up the leg a little bit and see. Ooh, look at that. This table is certainly going to have a lot of character.
Well, originally this video was supposed to be all about finishing the table, but we do have one more issue we have to address before we can finish the apron. Now, if you'll notice, the corners of the apron have this round over, and there was a tongue and groove joint here where the long apron has a tongue that will fit into the short pieces of apron. Now, if you can see the ends of these, you can see that they're all busted up, and I just don't think there's any way we're going to be able to make it work. This one here is completely gone. All that's left is the piece sticking out where from the groove on over, it's all gone. These are supposed to meet together here and join, but like I said, this wood is all gone here. And the rest of them partially gone. And you can see the new piece we made. We actually dressed it up, tried to make it work. It works fine, but the way the others are, we're not going to be able to use it. So we decided to put blocks in the corners. We've got some oak here that was left over, and what we're going to do is saw off the width of this oak from the existing aprons and of course the new one. All of our work will just go to waste on the end of that one. But we're going to glue a new piece of oak onto all of these short pieces, and it will just make a butt joint in the corner with no fancy roundovers or anything, but at least it will look finished. And now we're going to glue our little blocks to our pieces of apron. Alright, after we glued these and clamped them up, we took off for the evening, and now we are back and we have some color matching to do.
Yes, that's right. And what we're going to try to do is begin with the same blend that we applied to this replacement piece of apron. And we're going to color match these blocks that we put on. So again, that's going to be 4 parts special walnut to 2 parts of true black. So we'll go ahead and get that mixed up, and then we'll start applying our stain. All right, while we're waiting for the corner blocks to dry, we're going to go ahead and apply some driftwood stain to these long pieces of apron. We used this a little bit earlier on the legs, so we'll go ahead and put it on the apron pieces as well. It's also going to help us see how well we've color matched our replacement piece of apron. So let's go ahead and get these finished. Alright, so as you can see, our new piece of apron is nowhere near the original apron after we put that driftwood on. So I think what I'm going to do to try to get this match a little better, I'm going to take this special walnut and I'm going to brush quite a bit of this on and let it sit maybe 5 to 10 minutes and see if it'll darken up this new piece. It's been 10 minutes, so we're going to wipe this down and see how dark it is. If it's not dark enough, we'll just let it dry more later. It probably darkened it, I don't know, a couple of shades, but still not where we want to be, so like I said, we'll let it dry. We'll apply some more later.
Well, as you can see, we have the tabletop upside down on the bench here. It's all been sanded and cleaned off real good, but there's quite a bit of work still yet to do. You can see nothing is attached at this point, so that is our job right now.
That's right. We're letting those apron pieces hang out and dry a little bit while that stain's curing. So we're going to put all these pieces back on the bottom of the tabletop. It's a little nerve-wracking because we don't know, it was kind of easy taking them off somewhat, but we don't know how they're going to go back on. So there's some anxiety and excitement all in one.
Well, as we had feared, problems have arose. The first 3 standoffs screwed back down to the table just fine, and the other 3, well, all of the original screw holes are stripped. So we're going to have to use these standoffs as a template to drill new screw holes, and we'll move it about a ½ an inch, ½ to 3/4 of an inch maybe, from where it originally sat, and make a new seat for it and see if we can't get it screwed back down. Now we have all of our leg standoffs glued and screwed down in position. Now we're moving on to the next step.
That's right. We've got these 2 sets of sliders here. We're going to attach these to the bottom of the table. And so there's 6 screws in each. We'll go ahead and get those installed.
Now moving on to the next step. When we took the apron off of this table, the screws really weren't salvageable. They were all tore up, the heads were eat off of them, and some were missing. Some of the old screw holes are wallered out and really can't be used anymore. Also, I've noticed on these long runs of apron, there's only 3 screws with such a long span like that. I'd rather get 5 in there. So we're actually going to drill some pocket holes in these and redo them, put all new screws, and make them good and secure. Alright, we've got our piece of apron clamped up here on the table, and you can see we've got all the new pocket holes in it. I took 2 screws and kind of tacked it down to where it used to be at. We want it right in the same spot. But right now I've got to take the drill and I'm just going to mark out where the screws go on the bottom of the table with an 1/8 inch drill bit. And now it's time to attach these shorter pieces of apron to our tabletop. You got to take a little bit more caution with these because they set right up close to the end grain of this tabletop, and you know, with this 130-year-old oak, there's quite a possibility of causing a split in this wood. So we'll drill some pilot holes as best we can and try to get these screws in here without causing any expansion in the wood. Alright, now we have our apron attached to our tabletop, as you can see here. Now, when we first took this table apart, there were support blocks in the corners of the apron that attached the 2 pieces together where they meet, but they're all busted up. One of them split in half, and we really can't use them.
That's right. So we're going to improvise, and we just have some little blocks of pine here. Those will work just fine. We're going to glue and clamp these in each corner, and that'll make our apron nice and secure.
while we wait for the glue to dry on those corner blocks for our apron, we're going to go ahead and do some work on the legs. Now these have already been stained. They're ready to coat with some polyurethane, but something else has to be done before we can do that.
Before we do that, we're actually going to attach the legs to these boards. Instead of the legs attaching directly to the tabletop, they attach to these assemblies 2 at a time. So we're going to put them back on these boards, and then after that we will get to the polyurethane.
Well, now we have our legs attached to the leg boards, and they're all free of dust, good and clean, ready for something I really don't want to do.
And that's because it can be a little bit tricky. We've worked with other top coats before. We've not yet worked with polyurethane, so we're going to give it a go. It says, you know, sand lightly, remove any clear top coat. We took care of that a long time ago. Stir well, so we're going to do that. And then apply a thin coat using a high quality synthetic or natural bristle brush. So we've got a couple of synthetic brushes here. Ooh, that's kind of pretty. It's a nice little amber color. We're just gonna give this a stir. I can see all the way to the bottom of the can. That's pretty neat. When you're used to working with stain and you never know if you've got all the sediment mixed in or anything. But that's pretty. That's like an amber color. I wonder how it will impact, if at all, the color of the wood.
Well, the legs now have their first coat of polyurethane. The next step with those will be to sand them with 500 grit and give them a second coat. Now off camera we went ahead and we replaced these little support blocks on the sliding rails here. What we had left, there was 4 or 5 of them missing, so we put back what we could. Now on to the next step.
That's right. We've got our apron taped off with some painter's tape, and we're just going to put a little bit of stain on the underside of this table just to kind of seal it up a little bit. So we'll take care of that, and then we'll move on.
Now the next thing we're going to do, we're going to attach 2 of these draw catch latches, one on each side of the sliding rails. That way it'll keep the table from accidentally pulling apart when you don't want it to if you're trying to move it around or something. Hold one half to the other. There's no leaf in the table, so this will keep it held together.
That's right. And as soon as we get those installed, we will bring the leg assemblies over and attach them back to the table.
Well, you can probably tell these are not the original screws that this table was built with, but they were the ones that were in there when we received it. So we're going to go ahead and just put it back together with these.
All right, now we have the table back upright. The legs are looking really good. The next thing we're going to work on is the top itself. We're going to give it a couple of sandings, a 120, then a 220, and start applying the stain. We are getting so close to being finished.
Well, the tabletop is sanded up to 220. The dust has been cleared off, and we're ready to stain.
Yes, we are so close, like I said earlier, to being finished. And one thing to note, we picked up this stain. This is called Weathered Oak. It's a semi-transparent penetrating stain from Minwax. Initially we wanted to use a color called Driftwood, and we couldn't find enough of it. There was just itty bitty little cans, and we thought, you know what, we're not spending that much money. This looks very, very similar, and this table, as we've been stripping it down, it's been very, very difficult. As we've said, if you've watched the previous videos, it's been very difficult to strip this table. And so we are very hopeful that this is going to work. And if not, we will figure out how to color match later. So we're going to go ahead and give this a try and see what we think.
Well, you watched us stain it. We gave that time to dry, and after we saw it, we realized the top is still a little bit too light, so we came back in and we darkened it up with the special walnut.
That's right. We think this looks pretty good now. Historically, old tables, the top will be lighter than the legs, so we're okay with that. But it looks like everything's kind of blending together. So the next step is to start applying poly. So that's what we're going to do now.
Okay, we've got our first coat of polyurethane on the table, and we've got to let it sit and dry overnight. Now we will have to resand and recoat about 3 more times, so you're looking at probably a total of 4 coats of poly on this table when we're done.
That's right. And before we recoat with poly each time, we're going to sand this gently with these Duragold brand pads. This is the equivalent of about 320 grit. They're nice and flexible, easy to hold. We ordered these on Amazon. One of our favorite furniture restorers, Thomas Johnson, he uses Scotch-Brite pads, and so this is kind of like the equivalent of that. So we're excited to see how easy these are to work with as we sand down between each coat.
So we'll be back after this dries, and we'll start sanding. Well, now several days later, we are finished with the polyurethane. We wound up with 4 coats on the top and 3 coats on the apron and the legs, and our 130-year-old table is restored, and I couldn't be happier with how this turned out.
That's right. We are so excited that this is finally finished. It's taken us somewhere around 60 hours on and off working on this project. A lot of the work was just stripping down the parts. We initially thought, we'll blast it with some walnut shell. That was an adventure. And it gave us a good head start, but at the end of the day, we still had to go in with stripper and a lot of elbow grease, scrubbing these parts down, specifically the legs. I do love that this table has really kind of a personality all of its own. It definitely has a story to tell. I wonder where it's been. We do know that it was manufactured at the Choate-Hollister Furniture Company in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. That factory burned down in 1899. So I don't know how many Choate-Hollister tables like this are left in existence. If you know of a Choate-Hollister table, leave us a comment below. We'd love to see some more. But yeah, it took us about 60 hours worth of work and about $250 in supplies.
Now, if this is the first video you are seeing about this table, please go back and watch the other 5. You can come along through the whole journey with us and see what all we did to restore this table. And also, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and stay up to date on all of our new content. And you can also check us out over on Facebook as well.
Thanks again for joining us today. As always, happy woodworking!